Yeah, so we'll be having a very exciting session this afternoon or evening, wherever you are tuned in. And, we will be talking about Africa that is open for business. And ideally, when you talk about that, the key element that comes in mind, two components: one, government; two, regulations; and three, in terms of some incentives that you might need to get from those two components. So it's great that we'll be having this discussion, and I'll be having this discussion with a number of regulators across the continent, just to kind of get a couple of reactions on what they expect from you as innovators, but also giving you an opportunity to ask a number of questions on a couple of issues that really might need to kind of be tweaked to ensure that your businesses do operate in a clear manner. Yeah, so I don't know, I've seen a comment that you can't hear me, but I hope that I can be heard more or clearly. So, right, so we've gotten to that particular moment that we just need to get this going. And, with me, I've seen that I have the Kenyan regulator in the room. I also seen a regulator representative from Morocco. I've seen also Lloyd joining from, I think, Zimbabwe on the call. Yeah, I'll keep on just scanning through the number of regulators that will be joining us along the way. I've also seen Mary in the room. Salma is in the room. Yeah, so we kind of gotten a very good representation of this. Now, if you look at regulations, and this is something that we've been discussing with the regulators over the last couple of weeks. Regulations are basically divided in, I would say, three big buckets when it comes to what regulators look at in terms of these particular businesses are highly regulated. The initial component that you'll always come across is basically what we call the prudential regulations. And these are basically elements that tend to ensure that you kind of create a particular level for entry into the financial market. So for instance, what regulators over the couple of years have done when it comes to this component that they call prudential regulation is kind of set up some standards around capital, around the types of people that are needed to manage these particular businesses. And that in that particular case, then it ensures that they kind of maintain what we call the market ecosystem or market stability within the financial market space. So you'll be able to see that prudential regulations are set. Some of these regulations, most of the insurtechs or startups might not be at a position to meet them because they kind of at a particular threshold, and that becomes quite difficult to get market entry. The second component of regulation that is quite important, and this is something that you'll be able to see various regulators putting in place, is what we call market conduct. So they want to make sure that as you kind of get into the market, having provided the right capital, you've kind of brought in the right systems to enable you to run your business. Then in terms of how then you conduct that particular business, there's a particular code of conduct in terms of how you treat your customers, how you conduct this particular business, how you look at issues around competition, because they don't want to create market imbalance. They don't want to ensure that they want to make sure that customers are treated rightly. And in that particular threshold, you'll be able to get that regulators do issue some of the components or regulations that we term as market conduct regulations or market conduct guidelines that are basically stipulated. Now, the key thing is that this really looks into protecting the efficiency within the market system, ensures that the customers are well treated, ensures that you treat your competitors well, but also just ensures that the type of people that operate within a financial company are of good standing. So we don't want to ensure, we just need to make sure that, you know, some of the companies are not really becoming elements of money laundering, whereby, you know, you want to clean your money, then you easily push it through a financial company, and that particular money, once it gets into the system, it gets its way across the financial markets. Now, the third component that we'll be able to talk about today, and again, we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions around this, issues to do with market development vis-a-vis what we call reporting. So you'll be able to see that regulators over time have kind of realized that it's not only through protection of the financial system and customers that leads to growth. They also need to go out there and kind of take over the role of providing what we call ideas and train the customers to understand the financial systems and the financial products. Financial products are quite complex, and it requires a bit of training and education. So most of the time, you know, from where the regulators sit, they also need to kind of ensure that their customers, or the customers that will benefit from these particular products, have an opportunity to understand them. So in this case, then one of the key things that you'll be able to see highly highlighted within the financial systems is that regulators will go out there and start sensitizing the public on the importance of financial products, how these products can really assist them, and how then they can benefit from these types of products. So in terms of how the evolution of regulations have been, is something that has been quite key in development of those three key important facets. And over and above that, then the clear line is that the regulator will always require some reports just to understand what are the financial risks, what are the other components of risks are you facing as an institution. They want to understand your financial health, and this basically means that they'll require some financial reporting systems, some financial reports. They require some other reports that might be required from an independent party, be it auditors, be it other components such as actuaries, just to make sure that, yeah, this particular business is within the right standing. Now, if you look at all those three facets, the key thing is that there is an imbalance from what the incumbents, where they are sitting in terms of the resources, in terms of the what they have already put in on the ground, and that is not what insurtechs or innovators will have. Innovators are quite agile. They want to move quick. They don't, if they're coming up with an innovation, they don't want to take it through the longest process. If it comes to an incumbent, an innovation can take even a year, as they are still thinking, what are the risks around this? How will it impact our books and all that? But for an innovator, once an innovation has come into play, how quickly can we get it to the market? And that kind of brings or poses a very big challenge to the regulator, particularly when it comes to market conduct. How do we protect the customer? If this innovation doesn't work, which basically means that the innovation risks around it, how do we really complement these particular issues? Now, over and above that, you know, you might not really have resources to bring in the capital to get to the market entry, and that's why you've seen regulators kind of come up with a way of addressing that. You'll be able to see regulators setting up components such as regulatory sandboxes, just to kind of provide a safe space for innovators and also protect their customers in a way that, you know, you are basically providing this particular innovation at a scaled level and at a quantum that the risks, if this particular risk transpires, then that particular risk can easily be managed and addressed. So again, a number of components coming through within the business ecosystem. Now, the key thing is that at the end of the day, be it prudential, be it market conduct, be it market development, be it the reporting elements around it, is how then do we ensure that customers get the rightful product and we are able to address their needs. The second thing is then, if these particular customers will be able to get these particular products, are they able to ensure that they benefit out of it? And will we ensure that they clearly understand what they're getting themselves into? So the some of key critical components that we need to think about within the regulatory ecosystem, but how then do we make sure that this particular market becomes open for business? And in this case, then, are we able to have regulations that will balance both the innovative aspect of what we are trying to bring into the market, but also enable the regulator provide the protection that they desire to give to the market? So how then do we balance out innovation and issues around consumer protection? So that is something that is quite key when it comes to this particular ecosystem. Now, we want to basically get into the discussion, and this basically will give you an opportunity to interact with a number of key elements within the regulatory component. We'll have a big team from different regulators across Africa that are within the call. So I want to open this up, just to see what are some of the key elements that really enables us to say that our countries are open for business. Maybe I just want to pull in, I'll start with Kenya. One of the key things that, and okay, fine, it's a natural bias, just forgive me. I sit in Nairobi, so it's better to start from home, and maybe you'll know whether your home is doing well or not. And maybe if they're not doing well, then you'll kind of go and knock the door and see how that can be made better. So I'll basically start from Kenya. There's been a big shift, and I know there's been a long journey around revitalizing the financial system, particularly the insurance market system, whereby shifting the regulations, trying to create a strategy around innovation, looking at how all these components can be put together. The best thing is that BimaLab started in Kenya. So that is something that came out of a couple of initiatives on how then do we accelerate innovation within the marketplace. And that's how this particular program started. So I just want to pull in James to kind of give us some key highlights of what the regulator in Kenya is putting forward to innovators, particularly looking at how best we can ensure that our markets are open for business, and you as innovators kind of get a space to operate in when it comes to some of the innovations that we are putting in place. So maybe I'll call upon James, then we'll kind of get to the next phase with Uganda, then go to Zimbabwe. So James, maybe I'm starting home, you are closer to where I'm sitting.
Yes, Elias, thank you for the comments. Yeah, I don't know, it's good morning. I think good afternoon, everyone. So I'll start with what we have around Kenya. We look at, of course, we have rules related to the prudential, the market conduct, and of course, our mandate is also to generally develop the market. So what we have is on the innovation bit is we have a guideline on how innovations are accommodated. When it comes to also issue of coming up with new products, repackaging products, we also have a guideline that really promotes innovation. So we have approval process like for pilot testing. So you pilot test for a given period. When your product is somehow validated by the market, then we allow you to adjust the assumptions as the market demands. And then we also give you a license now to really scale up. So those are a few things that that we have. I think even like our guideline also allows people to test when they don't have much of a capital. We are a progressive regulator. Whatever arrangement you have, even with service providers or people who provide inputs into the various value chain of the insurance industry, we are very objective. We look through the products. We analyze the risks that are associated with that product. And our main risk is making sure that at all times the customer is protected. That the customer, given that the customer does not know that whatever is happening is pilot testing, at all times we try to make sure that the entity that is doing the testing, the pilot testing, at least has some capital, or there is a way that they are partnering with an insurance company or an insurance company to make sure that if the insurance event takes place or happens to happen, then the customer is compensated as promised. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. And kind of good initiatives in there that looks into actualizing the market space. So maybe before I go to the next speaker from the regulatory body, I wanted to kind of see whether there's any question specific to Kenya in terms of the people in the room that you think would enable us to ensure that there's an open space for us to operate in Kenya. So any question, maybe you can raise your hand if you have a question on something specific you would want to hear or get a response from Kenya. Yeah, so there's something here. There's a question. Let me check on the chat. In Kenya, do we feel there should be ways to make sure the regulators don't overprotect the customer? Right, so that is something that I know we are going to discuss. What is the right level of protection? You know, for any regulator, the easiest thing to do, and also becomes the most difficult thing to do, is protecting a customer. I'm saying that because I've worked in a regulatory setting for 10 years, and ideally the level of protection is always, I would say, a very subjective issue, given that the level of complaints that regulators do receive, they can be very complex. Some are very complex elements, some are very easy elements. And that's how you kind of now get the work within a regulatory office becomes more difficult, because you cannot really tell what might have been done better to avoid some of these circumstances. Now, the work of the regulator is not to overly protect the customer, but ideally just to make sure that, yeah, the customers do get the rightful, I would say, the rightful service. So are we meeting the contracts as required as entities, or are we basically ensuring that we kind of relay the rightful information to the customer? One of the key areas of I would say discordance with various customers is ideally issues around I would mention information asymmetries. Information is key, and most of the time, some of the information is not really provided. to the customer, and kind of that creates the next level of whereby now the customer becomes disgruntled because there are a couple of elements that he did not come across, and these elements are only coming at the end of the contract for what maybe had signed a couple of years ago. So again, various elements that we might need to think about as we kind of reflect onto this. Maybe I'll jump to Uganda. I've seen my colleague from IRA Uganda is in the building. If you can hear me, I think it was Sampol. Is Sampol in the house?
Elias, I am just seeing your lips move, but I felt like you mentioned my name, but I can't hear you. But I can see your lips move. I only heard the word Uganda.
Yeah, so basically, I just wanted to hear from your end. What are some of the things are you doing in Uganda to make Uganda open for business? Okay, Katete. I didn't know Katete was around. So Kevin, you can take that up. Kevin, you can go ahead.
Yeah, maybe he needs to unmute his line, Kevin.
You can't unmute. Okay. Kindly can somebody help Kevin to unmute? Have we locked the...
Yeah, Marianne, can you unmute Kevin? I'm not sure why he can't unmute because we could hear before. Marianne, can you hear me? Or Elias, can you hear me? Maybe no one can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. So
Okay,
yeah, as we...
Yeah.
James, maybe James had a response as we wait for Kevin to unmute. James, any response on?
Yeah, the issue of protection, I think that could be there. But what we try to do is when we don't understand the risk quite much, then we increase the frequency of reporting. So if the risk, whatever the innovation has brought in, we don't have comfortably and understand the risks. So we ask the respondent or the entity to report more frequently, maybe monthly, such that in case of anything, in case of challenge, then we are able to see it from the data perspective. Yeah, I think that's something, that's one thing that I could add on to how we normally try to protect the customer. Of course, the amount of information that goes to the customer is also important. So we try as much as possible to tell the entity that is selling the new product or the new innovation to disclose as much as possible. Of course, that also makes the documents a bit bulky, but those are some of the things. Maybe it increases the cost of doing business. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks, James. Very insightful. Now, this is something that James has kind of brought up. And if you remember the key elements that I mentioned earlier, consumer, product, prudential, market conduct, market development, and reporting. So in this case, then, in terms of if they are not very sure of what solution that you've kind of come up with, they can increase the reporting frequency just to make sure that they can we be able to identify some of these risks ahead of time, which is something that James has mentioned in there. Yeah, so I don't know whether Kevin has managed to unmute. Or maybe Sampol. Kevin has failed. Maybe what you can do, Kevin, is to log out, then log back in to check whether it's something to do with the settings in there. Yeah, as we kind of progress. Now, I want to jump to any question before I go to the next. I've seen 2 questions for Fazio in terms of, can we ask what does it take to set up regulatory sandbox? And this is something that I'll kind of put it to Neil. I've seen Neil have joined. So Neil, I want you to address this question. What does it really take to set up a regulatory sandbox? And the second thing is that, what does it take to transform the regulator to enable it not to be deterrent to progress and business growth? So maybe, and also I'll chime in, but I'll want to call upon Neil to kind of talk to us about what does it really take to set up a regulatory sandbox. I know we had a session of regulatory sandboxes whereby we are kind of taking the regulators on steps of setting up such sandboxes, and what does it require, and then also looking at how then you can have a very transformative regulator. I'll be able to also chime in. So maybe I'll give it to Neil, then yeah, we will progress. Neil?
Okay, thank you, Elias, and good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is a excellent question. How do you set up a sandbox? You know, one thing that we got to do as regulators is make certain that we don't just set up a sandbox. You know, it's not a compliance-based process anymore. We need to set up a full process surrounding the sandbox. And, you know, as we go through and look at the different innovation and technology companies that are applying to go into some regulatory sandbox or such, we need to assess each one and see it, how it will impact the risk of you know, the current operations of the industry, and so it needs to be a process. And as we go through our sessions, we're going to be kind of continuing on from looking at the objectives. What's the objectives of the regulator? What are the barriers that are impacting companies from entering into the market? You know, are there alternatives to a sandbox? I mean, in some instances, some of the applications may just require some reworking the regulations to allow it into the operations. And then we need to make certain that we can assess the different types. There could be different sandboxes. You know, it could be thematic, it could be by geographic location, product, and such. So in essence, I guess the bottom line, what I would like to respond to is we do need to look and assess the different risks, and we need to set up a process surrounding the sandbox, not just develop a sandbox and one size fits all. It will be a process. Back to you, Elias.
Right. Thanks, Neil. That's a very good comment in there. So it requires an entire process. And maybe just to add a couple of components in here, and then also we'll get an experience from a couple of regulators that have managed to set up that sandbox. You know, regulatory sandbox requires a couple of elements. One is it has to, you need a legal backing behind it. So it can either be a guideline, it can be a regulation that sets it up. The second thing that regulator thinks about is the resources, because, you know, from a regulatory sandbox perspective, there are a couple authorizations that you will be providing. So the key thing is that do you have the capacity within the regulatory office to really go through some of these ideas? You know, BimaLab is really trying to work with the regulators in terms of building that capacity, just to understand various elements within the technology play that kind of addresses issues that will enable such sandboxes to be actualized. The third thing that maybe I need to mention is that there are different elements, or there are different types of sandboxes, and the key thing is that the regulator also need to understand what is it's trying to solve within the market system. So there's need to look at what is the most pressing need, what has really kind of created a very big barrier within the market, and can we kind of put a theme around it that will enable these innovators to come into the play and kind of create the rightful change that the market really desires. So some of the key, that is a very clear component that also need to be looked at. But as Neil has mentioned, it requires a very rigorous whole value chain in terms of looking at why do we really need the sandbox? Do we have the capacity to run the particular sandbox, and what solution are we really trying to manage? There's some also risks around sandboxes, you know, and maybe just to mention a few. Some people tend to use a sandbox to circumvent the law. So for instance, you know, there's this particular level of threshold that has been put within the regulatory requirements, but the regulator is now providing an easier route to channel some of these particular innovations. So how then do you ensure that somebody does not really is capable of meeting all this that has been set at this particular level, but he just now decides, okay, fine, because this guy has told me that I don't really need to jump any longer. Even if I have the capability of jumping, I shouldn't jump. I'll just kind of walk through some of these things that he has put in place. So again, clear indication of what really needs to be thought through when it comes to sandboxes. Now, what does it really take to transform a regulator or a regulatory body? There are so many components. There's no one answer that we can give around that. It depends with what the regulator wants really to achieve. So you really need to get champions within that, within the regulatory office, that will champion the transformation of the regulatory authority to contend with these particular changes. There's need to also have a number of engagements. So how often do the industry engage in terms of the future and the innovation that is currently coming into the play within the marketplace? There's also need just to think through the various sessions. So collaborative sessions, training sessions, coming together as innovators to advocate for changes that really would be important within the marketplace. Yeah, so I want to pause there and maybe now bring in Uganda. I know we have two regulators in the building that have kind of set up a sandbox. I've seen Axel from Rwanda. You'll talk to us about the sandbox and how can innovators get to benefit from that particular sandbox in Rwanda, and also maybe hear from Uganda. How then do we benefit from the sandbox that is there? And maybe if we can get a bit of play within Kenya before I move to the southern part of Africa. So I'll start with Axel or with Kevin, depending on whose mic is ready to make some few comments or reactions. Kevin, is your mic now working? All right, let me start with Axel.
Yes, okay, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Okay, Thank you for the question.
Maybe you can quickly introduce yourself because it will be good to know.
Okay. My name is Arcel Roberto, as actually it's appearing on the box. Actually, I'm Arcel Roberto from the National Bank of Rwanda. That is a department in charge of supervision and regulation of insurance and pension funds. Of course, actually, on our side, actually, the setup is done in a way that the regulator actually of insurance, banks, and pension does not actually deal with the sandbox. What we do is we work hand in hand with the department in charge of development and inclusion. That's these are the I can say the custodian of sandbox, and then of course where need to be actually we work hand in hand. They consult us, and then if we have any input or any advice to provide to them, we do. So what's happened is that, of course, since last year we came up with a separate regulation. As we said, actually the existing one is kind of sets some actually standards which are a bit higher under actually normal circumstances, and then so we had to come up with a separate regulation whereby we allow anyone who can come with any innovative products to register within a flexible actually requirement, and then within a set timeline. As of now, actually it's 1 year maximum, whereby once you pass the test in terms of sandbox requirements, you are admitted, but within a kind of a box, an environment, and then even in terms of policyholders or client, actually will be limited in terms of the client or the customer to be served up and until you pass, or maybe your product is proved to be successfully, and then you can now sit and assess whether you can go out of the sandbox and then maybe serve all the population. But the fact is, as of now, we are yet to approve any innovator. What's happened is that most of the what I can call the innovators are coming. When you discuss with them, you find out that most of them are kind of service providers who are actually offering some of the innovative solutions, either kind of telematic or maybe in terms of profiling the customers, as to assist insurance companies to do better underwriting and come up with pricing that are commensurate using technology. So as of now, the actual experience is for all of these actual innovators. What we do first of all is to advise them to first approach insurance companies and convince them of the added value that those products or those innovative products we bring to insurance companies. If convinced, then we say, in that case, I don't think that they need to go to come back to the regulator and actually get any approval, because in that case, they will be considered as service providers and can just have agreement with insurance companies and then work without actually having to pass through any regulatory approval. So this is the status as of now.
Thank you, Excel. And yeah, so we have the regulatory sandbox that has been already set up by the National Bank of Rwanda, BNR, that looks into supporting innovators. The key thing is that they are kind of getting innovations that are more on the servicing side, keen to see more coming through. And maybe, Axel, do you envision some of these insurtechs knocking your doors in Rwanda? Maybe somebody wants to move from, I would say, Zimbabwe, and want to set up in Rwanda. Are there some limitations that he needs to think about, or this is something that you guys are open to see some of these cross-border innovations coming within your ecosystem?
Yeah, actually, there is even actually an arrangement actually that was done as of recently with the RDB. This is Rwanda Development Board, in terms of coming up with one-stop center as to even facilitate the investors. As you know, actually, previously one has to come, first of all, register this company with the Rwanda Development Board. This is the registered general before coming to the regulator and then apply, of course, in line with the regulation. As of now, actually, what we did is we came up with a one-stop center whereby right at the Rwanda Development Boards, you will find a staff from the National Bank of Rwanda. So you get one at the same time, if you comply with all the requirement sets, you will get at the same time you'll be registered as a businessman or to do business. And at the same time, if you comply with the regulation, you can get only one document. You don't need to get a registration from RDB and then come to BNR and get the actual license. So we came up with a one-stop center whereby you just knock on one office or once you are in Rwanda, and then you can get all the requirement. And then if it's good, if actually you meet them, you just get the actual what I can call authorization.
That's very fantastic, and that basically makes me so jealous. You know, these are some of the things that I think from the Kenyan side we were talking about that like 5 years ago, and we haven't really. And I don't know whether James did in Kenya whether this has been actualized, because I think in terms of ease of doing business and having a one-stop shop kind of makes easy for some of these things to be aligned quickly. So maybe I'll get some reaction later from James, but I want to check with Uganda whether they've managed to unmute. You know, it seems like today microphones are not working in there. So St. Paul, I've seen Marcos here. Anybody talk to us about the sandbox and what you are seeing there, and an opportunity for InsurTechs to think about when it comes to Uganda? I've seen Marcos or St. Paul, or I think Kevin cannot manage to get to the mic. Marcos, St. Paul. All right, so I'm still waiting. As I wait, let me go to Zimbabwe. I see Mary is in the call. Mary, maybe kind of highlight to us what are some of the initiatives that makes Zimbabwe open for innovators, before I get to some of the questions that I've seen kind of that have been posted on the mic. Mary, if you can take it from there. Maybe you can do a quick intro.
Thank you, Elias. I also, okay, I'm Mary Takavarash. I work in the insurance department. I have my colleagues here. Also, there is our director there, Mrs. Suela. I think she will come through as well.
Great to have her on the call. We are honored.
Yes, and then there's also Lloyd and other colleagues. They can also come through. I'll just briefly go through what I have here. So in recognition of the importance of innovation, we actually set up a unit called Research and Innovation Unit. It's fairly new, so we are hoping that this is the unit that will guide us and probably spearhead issues to do with innovation. But for now, they've been doing some research. For example, they actually did a paper on regulatory sandboxes. But we don't have a sandbox as yet. The only regulator that has that is our central bank. It has a sandbox, but and they actually invited other regulators to use it for innovation, but we haven't used it as yet as the insurance industry. We have also an innovation lab where we are developing an agricultural product is still in the development stages. And right now we're looking at pricing the product. And we are hoping, so here we're allowing for testing that product, but Mrs. Weller is the one who is spearheading that. She can come through and explain more. And we have been approving some new products as well, though there is no regulation per se, but we're also like allowing the products to be implemented, and we keep monitoring what is happening. What else? We also have a micro insurance framework, with less stringent requirements. If one wants to come on board and offer services or products. But let me allow Mrs. Weller maybe to come through, and Lloyd and other colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Like Mary has just said, we are also participating as a country in the Innovation Lab that is sponsored by Access to Insurance Initiative. And in this project, we developed an agricultural index product that we will be prototyping in an area called Goromonzi. For quite some time, we're stuck with the pricing issue. We didn't know how to price an agriculture product, but we finally got assistance from the World Bank. They have seconded an actuary to assist us in that area. And as we speak, we are in the process of decomposing the product to the actuary and the team in an effort to come up with the price for the product. Once that is done, we will be ready to then engage the stakeholders, mostly the smallholder farmers, to participate in this product. And then also on another end, we are working with the World Bank to develop agriculture index insurance in Zimbabwe. They're assisting us with the capacitation of the industry, capacitation of the Insurance and Pensions Commission staff, so that they understand also what agriculture insurance is about. They are also assisting us with the development, with the regulatory framework of the agriculture index insurance. All these efforts are in progress. And in addition to what Mary said, we are also reviewing our microinsurance framework so that it accommodates all the key functions of a microinsurance business. Currently, the microinsurance framework that we have in place does not differentiate between a conventional insurer and a micro-insurer. We're also in the process of reviewing our MCR, microinsurance MCR, to allow for microinsurance companies to participate. As of late, I think as of last year, we registered from 2 companies to about 11 companies, microinsurance companies that are now ready to operate in our markets. I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think key components in there, and maybe Lloyd can jump in later. And I just want to kind of highlight a couple of things that makes this a very good element of Open for Business. I've seen a hand from Gavi. I'll allow you to ask that question in a bit. Now, one of the key things that have been mentioned is development of a number of regulations from microinsurance regulations to enabling capacity within the regulatory office, reviewing MCR regulations, and that basically creates a very good place to kind of plug in. I've also had a couple of initiatives in terms of products being developed, which basically, again, provides an opportunity for collaboration and really looking at how we can generate partnerships around that. So very exciting to see great initiatives in there. There's also the setup of research and innovation office. That basically means that the innovators have a place to go. Most of the time you'll get that regulators will tell you to come. Then once you go to their office, they don't know which office they will direct you to. So I think it's quite exciting that there's already a research and innovation department that the innovators can always anchor and run to in terms of other clarifications that are needed. So in terms of capacity, in terms of setting up a space for innovators to go in their regulations and reviewing some of the guidelines is really a good initiative that kind of makes Zimbabwe open for business. I'll run to Gavi to ask the question. You raised your hand, so if you can take it up.
Okay, thank you very much. So I wanted to ask, like, what is the, like this question is addressing to Mary, Zimbabwe regulators for insurance. Like, what are the requirements for enrolling in Innovation Hub? Then number two, Strongly was talking about pilot study that is being happening in Koromozi. And I wanted to say, like, we are now 95% completion for our satellite technology to really start working in agriculture, and we have partnered with agricultural development organization here in Zimbabwe to make an impact to 90,000 smallholder farmers. So how best can we get assistance? Because right now we don't have an insurance license. And I wanted to understand the concept of underwriting, whereby a startup is being underwritten by a big microfinance organization. What are the requirements and what is the process?
Yep, Mary, if you can address those questions, yeah, and then maybe proceed.
Okay, let me allow Mrs. Weller to respond to the questions.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't quite get the questions. I think my network let me down for a while. Can the...
Yeah, so Gavi, maybe you can briefly ask them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was asking, like, what is the process for a startup to be underwritten by another insurance company? Because right now, as a startup, we facilitate insurance products to smallholder farmers using satellite technology. So we don't have a microfinance insurance. At one of the events, I met a legal insurance startup here in Zimbabwe called Legal Tech. They are underwritten by Sanctuary Insurance. So I wanted to understand, like, what is the process for us to be underwritten by a certain insurance company in Zimbabwe?
Thank you. In terms of requirements, we have requirements for brokers. We also have different requirements for insurers. I think it depends at which level you want to enter the market. So I would say it's better you visit our website or you engage us offsite. There's quite a number of requirements for each class of business that we may want to conduct in the market. And also, as well as different minimum capital requirements for each class of business. I don't know if I've answered you, Gavi.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you very much. So I think I'll pay a visit at your website.
Yeah. So yes, maybe just also to further elaborate that answer. It seems like it's important for the InsurTech to know which area it's going to play or plug. So for instance, if you are going to plug on the distribution side, then there's a way in which you can be authorized from the regulatory perspective. You basically are looking into developing that particular product, and then you want to get into a partnership with an underwriter for that particular product to go to the market. Then again, it will depend on the service level agreement with the underwriter and how then the services that you'll be offering. Again, the key thing is understanding which area of play will I be kind of be providing my services from, and then from there, then you should be able to provide it, be provided guidance. So Gavi, it's good. Maybe you can visit the IPEC offices, or kind of just have a meeting just to see how then you can get the authorization to get to the next phase. I'll go to Morocco. I've seen Salma on the call. And maybe I know there are a couple of questions on the chat. I should be able to look at them. So before I look at the questions, let me go to Morocco. Are we ready for business in Morocco? Salma, what is happening on the ground? We want to kind of see how then we open that market up also for this exciting innovation. So what is Morocco doing, and how can we plug into that particular space?
Yes, thank you, Elias, for giving me the opportunity to talk about Morocco. So as you know, Morocco, we are only at the beginning of our journey promoting innovation and promoting the InsurTech ecosystem to be developed, etc. So we are just at the beginning of our journey. But we have a vision, and we've already done a lot of things that will make this a lot more easier. So, for example, you know that we developed microinsurance regulatory framework, and we opened the door to new players to distribute microinsurance products, which are payments institutions are allowed to distribute microinsurance products. We are we have just opened the innovation and InsurTech unit within the authority. This unit, I'm responsible of this unit for now, and we are probably going to hire other persons. And the objective of this unit is to facilitate collaborations between InsurTech startups and other stakeholders, and insurance companies, other stakeholders. The unit is also here to provide guidance and support, and about the regulation. So we are giving guidance and support to InsurTechs and InsurTech companies about regulation, because now the real problem is not really regulation itself, because actually a lot of things can be done. The real difficulties are the understanding of it. So what we notice is that there is no barrier actually, but the perception is different. It means that startups and InsurTechs and players think and have the perception that it's easy, that that it's difficult. Sorry, that the market is difficult to enter, etc. But actually, the regulation is really opened. There are ways to enter the market. There are ways to innovate, to use technology, etc. But it's just maybe we need to send the right signal, and we need maybe to raise our level of transparency toward innovators and InsurTech startups. So this is why the unit is here, is to communicate a lot better about what is possible within the actual regulatory framework. And also the unit will also promote changes in the regulation to promote, to go further. If the actual regulation is not enough, and does not give the possibility to innovate. So the role of this unit is also to promote changes in the regulatory framework and develop programs, etc., toward the startups, toward insurtech startups programs around maybe use cases that are going to be identified, some innovative use cases. So this is what this is our vision. This is what we are aiming to do, and we are starting this at the end of the year, and we're hoping that we're going to have financing from bailleurs de fonds. Alors, how do we do from the African Development Bank? So we are waiting for financing, to develop this vision and to deploy all the vision we have, and it's going to start at the end of the year.
Great. Thank you very much. So a couple of regulations being developed. They are top of the table of microinsurance regulations in Morocco. Innovation unit, really spearheaded by Salma herself, kind of signaling collaborations and guidance to the regulators. But the key thing also around capacity is something that they are working on, just to make sure that innovation is entrenched. And I think that again gives us a very good door to knock in terms of what the continent really wants to do when it comes to some of these innovations. So I think that's an opportunity for all of us to think how then can we plug into that particular sector. I wanted to go to Nigeria. I don't know whether Dr. Yankara has already left, or maybe there's somebody from the NICOM that can kind of talk to us about what is happening within that market before I look into these questions. Anybody from NICOM in the call? I've seen Dr. Yankara mentioning that he was stepping out for another call. Right, so maybe he will join us later. I just wanted to kind of push these questions to any regulator on the call. I know Uganda has managed to get their microphone back. But before I go to Uganda, the question is that, is it a common practice for a requirement on microinsurance companies to have their risk adjustment of premium set up done by actuaries? And there's an example there. There's no actuaries. There are zero actuaries in Ethiopia. So I'll go to Kenya. How are you pricing this microinsurance product? What is in the law? And then also I'll go to Zimbabwe. You have a microinsurance regulation. What is in the law when it comes to microinsurance pricing? Who does it? Is it an actuary or no actuary? I'll start with James.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Yeah, from I think Kenya, we don't have a big challenge about the actuaries. Some 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we had like 6 actuaries. Now we have 70 plus associates. We have quite a number, so we almost have like 100 actuaries who can sign, who can do the actual work. So our regulation on microinsurance is that we have a microinsurance actuary who is basically a toned down kind of an actuary who maybe is expected to have maybe from maybe 6, 7, or 8 papers, or somebody who has done an actuarial degree. So we have a toned down kind of an actuary for microinsurance. I think that's where we are, but also in terms of we have limited the amount that the microinsurer, some insurer that a microinsurer should be able to write, including the premium is also maybe somehow limited. And of course, we are finding it like becoming a challenge with this great inflation. So sometimes fixing these numbers becomes a challenge because the value of the currency is losing value quite fast. So I think we have limitation. We have a ceiling on the maximum amount of sum assured, premiums per day or premiums per year. Yeah, somehow controlled. But I think this is an area where we might end up reviewing in the near future. Yeah, I think that's what there is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so in there we get that there is a microinsurance actually that the regulation kind of proposes. Not a really fully qualified actually, but somebody that has kind of managed to do a bit of actual practice in terms of the journey for the qualification in Kenya, though they don't seem to have an issue with availability of actuaries in there, but within the regulation they state that particular requirement of I would say a downscale type of an actuary. Mostly they're calling that a microinsurance actuary. Mary, any comments on pricing and who authorizes pricing for microinsurance products in Zimbabwe?
Thank you, Elias.
Yeah.
We haven't really taken a position as to what requirements we'll need from actuaries, but the thrust that we have taken is that actuarial requirements must be at a bare minimum. We are cognizant of the fact that a microinsurer is collecting very small premiums, and we must also assist them to keep the costs very low. So the requirements for actuarial input will be at a minimum. We haven't really agreed as to how much and in which way, but this is something that we're currently looking into. And hopefully in the future we'll be able to respond with certainty and say this is the direction that we are taking. But yes, this is an area that we are focusing on currently. We haven't taken a position. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Any other reaction from Salma on microinsurance regulations when it comes to actuaries? And maybe after Salma, then I'll give it to Uganda to talk to us about what is happening in that market and what are the opportunities that InsurTech can look forward to get from there. So maybe Salma, then I go to Marcos or Kevin. Maybe Kevin or Marcos, anything that's happening on the Uganda side?
Yes, thank you, Elias. On the Ugandan side, we have taken quite a number of strides on our sandbox. Maybe what is unique is that we have partnered with a company that basically deals in innovation. We call it the Innovation Village. So in our sandbox, you can access the sandbox two ways. You can come direct to the sandbox, or you can go through the accelerator program under the Innovation Village. So it's where we stand. It looks like the Innovation Village is more specialized in innovation. So by the time you go through them, you get to us, you have a final product. Nevertheless, there's also that direct route where you can come straight to the sandbox. In terms of opportunities for the fintechs, we are finalizing our microinsurance regulations. So I see an opportunity there. In terms of agricultural insurance, we are rolled out agricultural insurance. There's, I've seen the weather index. Also, we are taking quite a number of strides. And the latest opportunity that I've seen is in oil and gas, where we are finalizing the regulations as well. And here for the fintechs, of course, you can come in on the part of distribution, or if they so wish, even if they can partner with an underwriter, well and good, there's an opportunity there. But what is unique about microinsurance, as we're finalizing the regulations, we already have 2 microinsurers on the market, and they are quite moving steadfast. Only that the only challenge that they have been having is, which is of course a global challenge, the hardening economy. But we still have 2, and they are fully operational on the market as we await the regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much on that. Yeah, so that's quite impressive. So more of like also setting up the sandbox, creating channels of collaboration, working on regulations, and yeah, and other emerging risks that he has mentioned, that kind of provides a channel for investments or partnerships. Yeah, so I'll go to Ghana. I'd seen a fees on the call. Maybe just to hear the progress of this innovation license and other initiatives that are being done in Ghana. Hafiz, maybe some few reactions in there.
Hi, Elias, and everyone. Thank you very much. So, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, perfectly. We can hear you straight from Accra.
Okay. So yes, Ghana, our journey has been good. Let me start off with the law. What happened is that in 2021 December, a new Insurance Act was passed, and that act actually set out to make innovation a center stage of it. And so it sets out a very important step in terms of the framework that would allow for innovation and etc. to take center stage in the insurance space in Ghana. Beyond that, what we have done is to actually set up an innovation hub where I currently directly work under. The hub is actually working on mainly 2 things, internal innovations, and then also innovations that come from the industry. And so basically what the hub is doing presently is to get the directives on the sandbox regulations released. It has taken a bit longer than we envisaged, but the good thing is that there are a number of applications from insurtechs requesting to have innovative license to operate. So the commission is actually working to get the first cohorts of insurtechs operate in our space while we work to get the directives passed. So in the meantime, we have a number of applications we have reviewed that goes around, that has partnerships with some international firms and local insurance companies. For example, there is one with ETAP, a Nigerian firm, with one of the insurance companies seeking to use an innovative way to sell motor insurance, which is one of the biggest class of business in Ghana. But beyond that, we are also trying to create a number of programs that would attract fintechs and insurtechs to the insurance space, because we want to be able to regularly organize what we call labs to be able to attract insurtechs to see that the regulator is now more receptive to innovation than it has been in the past, and etc. So Ghana is doing quite well. Beyond the sandbox environment, thankfully, presently we have the technical service provider license that in the past we issued to persons that wanted to sell mainly microinsurance. Now, what is happening now is that the regulator wants to revise it a bit to be able to accommodate firms that transition out of the sandbox environment to be able to operate mainstream. So beyond the sandbox, would issue a specialized license that would allow you to continue to work on our environment. And that is also being worked on. And so I'm sure in the next few months, when all of that is finalized, we would have a much robust structure that would accommodate innovators that want to play in the Ghanaian space. But for now, any innovation you have, you are allowed to apply, and the application is reviewed. On the merit of it, the regulator can take a decision whether or not they want you to bring the kind of innovation that you have in our market. And we've done, the review is done on about 8 firms already, and we want to get that cohort happen this year.
Right. Good initiatives in there, from the law change to innovation unit to authorization of companies, including just providing an example of a partnership that is cross-border, Nigeria going to Ghana for clear impact within the distribution space for motor insurance. So yeah, quite exciting to get those comments from Ghana. Maybe I'll kind of now open it up for questions. I don't know whether I forgot anybody. Not really. I think maybe if is there somebody from Central Bank of Ethiopia? I haven't seen anyone in the call. I'll follow up with the bank and see whether there's some specific question that we'll be able to send over to them. But yeah, so maybe I just wanted to open it up. You know, this is a time that you get the regulators in a call. You can take a shot on what you think you need to ask them. And you know, this rarely happens. You know, somebody told me that you know, for meetings you have to. For regulator, the meetings only happen in the morning. In the afternoon, then you don't really manage to get meetings. Maybe that's not right. But yeah, so guys, we have these guys in the room. Let's see whether there are specific questions on a particular area that you'd want to work or maybe kind of explore. Yeah, so I'm opening it up for questions. So you can unmute, you can ask. And then maybe you can direct your question to any particular country. We have Uganda, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, Nigeria on the call. Yeah. And then I've seen there's one question that has come in. So if you can just open up your mic and ask, that will be great.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'll put my hand up. Let me lower it. Yeah, thanks.
I've not seen it. Yeah, just proceed.
All right, thanks. Jean here from Uganda, Akelo Banker. So I think my question is, I don't know if it's a question or maybe I'm requesting for information. It goes across, but of course, Uganda more importantly. I know what frameworks you put in place to make sure that such a communication you've been giving is available and accessible to the people who actually need those services. So if you look at, I'll also give an example, we're in Rwanda, and they have all these innovations, but how do they actually make this known and make it accessible and usable for the people? So putting in place the SOPs, the qualification sort of framework or standards for you to be able to participate without me really walking into your office or coming in to seek information from you. So do you have in place some of those guidelines and publicly accessible for one to know? For instance, you talked about the the oil and gas? How can I know what opportunities are there and what is there? Thank you.
Yeah, Marcos.
Yes, thank you for that question. Specifically for the lines of communication, we've been using the traditional methods of communication. We have social media pages, mainstream media, our websites, and so on. But in terms of innovations, we actually took a deliberate effort. We have what we call the Innovation Awards. These awards, this is where we get the whole industry focused towards innovation. At this point in time, that's when you present your innovations, they are rated, and we have a huge industry gala night where we present the winners and so on. So this is the biggest forum through which we can push out those innovations and put them out there. But in terms of communication, we have been using the traditional means of communication. I submit.
Right, so good insights in there. There's a bit of communication that is being done. So we just hope that Marcos will get a couple of BimaLab guys participating in that innovation challenge. Is it competition? Yeah, to see whether they cut the suit in there. So yeah, so any other question from the team?
Elias, can I jump in for Nigeria?
Yep.
Hey, Elias.
Yep.
Yeah. So just in terms of Nigeria, haven't looked at it too closely, but I'm just interested from the regulator, if there are any kind of restrictions in terms of technology transfer agreements, which I know is an issue also in kind of Ghana, as I understand it. And again, any kind of restrictions in terms of paying kind of offshore kind of fintechs or insurtechs in this case. So just understanding the kind of complication regarding technology transfer to essentially foreign fintechs, and also any complications around paying funds to foreign fintechs.
Right. So is Dr. Yankara back? Let me just check. Yeah, so Dr. Yankara had a meeting. So but let me just quickly respond to this. Yeah, so we've kind of seen companies evolving outside countries, and I'll be able to mention. So for instance, we had Turaco that was predominantly in Kenya, then Uganda. Then through the BimaLab program, they wanted to expand to Nigeria, which ideally they did manage to get to Nigerian ecosystem, and they're working now in Nigeria. So definitely, I don't think there are quite a number of restrictions within the market in Nigeria when it comes to institutions setting up there. The second component is that I think Nigeria recently did release the regulatory sandbox, which also kind of presents an opportunity for innovators. But yeah, I'll be able to kind of also arrange a one-to-one meeting between yourself, Jeremy, and the team in Nigeria if that's necessary. But generally, I think things are quite looking open in that particular market space. But in case there's need for a follow-up, then I should be able to set it up and make it happen.
Thanks a lot, Elias.
Thank you, Jeremy. Another question from the team? Any burning issue? I know there are a couple of comments around the drones. There's a question from Ruben talking about looking at use of the drone technology within in terms of risk surveying, particular for index insurance. How then do you facilitate authorization of that? Because again, if you look at drones, it goes beyond insurance. So James, are you working with other agencies to ensure that if somebody wants to use a drone technology, they're allowed to do that? Any agency that you are collaborating with in regard to use of such technologies that the approval might go beyond just allowing from a product perspective?
I would say that we have any arrangement with any institution, but we have some insurers who are insuring drones. So I think when a drone has a cover, I think it becomes easier for even the other agencies like the airport authority to be able to really clear them, because I think they have some level of protection. So I would say we have an arrangement, but we have seen products that insure drones, and we have approved those products. We haven't seen much of any accidents or much of the claims, but that's where we are. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, James. So more on looking at how this transpires. In fact, yesterday I was just watching the news, and very interesting. I don't know who managed to watch this. The United Nations Secretary General was talking about how AI, artificial intelligence, is now a threat to national security, and all those discussions around how can we look at basically managing such technologies to ensure that they are not a threat to national security, and all that in terms of data that is passing through. Maybe if you check out on the news for International USA, you'll be able to see some of these discussions. So ideally, technology is still having a couple of challenges, because again, people tend to misuse technology. So for instance, the drone elements and all that, you know, what other countries are talking about when it comes to drones and all that. Yeah, so some very exciting times as we kind of look at technology and really managing those technologies. Right, so I've seen Jeremy says that he has one more question to ask. Maybe you can ask that, and then I'll kind of call upon Paizo to also ask his question. I think it's something on data protection.
Yeah, thanks, Elias. I mean, so obviously BimaLab is an African-wide kind of a accelerator. So dealing with kind of multiple countries, and we also, I think, across kind of 8 countries now. But increasing challenge we're seeing is around the kind of focus on data protection, data sovereignty. So it'd be good to know the kind of view of you on the kind of regulators on where this is going. So for example, we want to leverage cloud-based systems, like I think many fintechs and insurtechs want to do, but increasingly there are restrictions in country where you're not allowed to let personal data leave the country, either via particularly Data Protection Act, or via parallel regulators. For example, Rwanda, the telecom regulator, bans mobile subscriber data leaving the country. So that creates major challenges for kind of fintechs or insurtechs, where they do want to leverage cloud-based kind of systems. And you're seeing in a lot of these markets that it's not that easy to do these hybrid installments where you localize kind of private personal data in country whilst leveraging kind of cloud. It's something which we're doing, but it isn't causing quite a bit of pain and basically unnecessary cost, even though we broadly meet the GDPR and other requirements across countries. So again, it'd be good to get a thought around, how do we manage that trade-off by encouraging innovation and leveraging cloud-based systems across multiple countries, and yet at the same time seeing kind of data protection, data sovereignty, forcing kind of companies to deploy their data locally in local servers, which are often less stable and higher cost than they would be than using the cloud. I don't know if that's something you can speak to, or your colleagues can.
Right, that's a very good question. And in fact, this is something that we've been thinking about, Jeremy, from also the BimaLab perspective, because again, how do we ensure that we kind of create a data component that can be utilized across a number of countries. That's something that we might not really get an answer at once, but it requires us to just kind of push from a common front in terms of enabling some of these technologies to be accepted across the countries, leveraging it on the African free trade area, kind of a protocol, looking at what BimaLab is trying to do, and basically talking to various agencies, be it government agencies, be it data protection agencies, on the need of really allowing some of the cross-border data flow. And maybe the key thing that we might need to assure these particular governments or data protection agencies is that the consumer data has been protected. I think the key thing is that they're only worried of the use of this data and on how this data will be utilized in future. So if there's a capability of addressing that and providing some form of, I would say, assurance that the adherence of this is going to be upheld, then I don't see a challenge of kind of seeing a cross-border utilization of such technologies in the future. But it's something that we really need to advocate for and call for when it comes to some of this. And I just to mention this, one of the things that we are keenly looking at to see how then we can enable that to happen.
Thanks, Elias, because it does, increase the cost significantly and complication. And I assume that other kind of insurtechs playing across markets will face the same challenges. It's also ironic that you do have regional data centers like the East Africa data center being set up, but they're actually not necessarily being able to use because of the kind of data, I guess, sovereignty issues where local countries.
Right. Yep. So Paizo, I've seen your question. If you can ask it on the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you okay. Yep.
Thank you. So my question is for regulatory bodies across the board, meaning across different countries. So for example, if I wanted to expand to Kenya, what are the major barriers and challenges? I mean, in Ethiopia, obviously you don't have regulatory sandbox, you don't have a clear direction, guideline, directives, and what have you, or implementation plan. But let's say if I wanted to go to Ghana and solve some of the critical challenge problems circling around innovation, what seems to be a common denominator across the board that the locals are requiring? Are they claims management, or I just wanted to be very specific about what it is that's lacking, or what is that's demanded on the ground? Is it just an awareness challenge or selling microinsurances, specifically around microinsurance? I don't know, is my question is clear, Elias?
Yeah. Yeah, so great. So I think that should be a very good last question that I'll take to all regulators. You know, they've talked about all the good things that have happened, and maybe when I will be ending this, I'll want to ask them, what is that one thing that has not worked that you think we need to solve to even catalyze the market? So yeah, just hold it there, Paizo. I think they'll be able to tell us one thing in each and every country that we really need to act on to create. Now, on the other bit, maybe the other question is that James, that Paizo is asking, what is this thing that will make him be attracted to come to Kenya to set up? One thing that you think opens up Kenya as a good destination for Paizo? James? think maybe, James, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
You know, if I was you, I would have said our flag is so beautiful. But anyway, it's your question.
So I think what has not worked for us is basically we are still investigating why the uptake of microinsurance is taking too long. We get so many applicants. We give them some kind of approval in principle. We tell them now, then put the structures in place, then they disappear. So I think that's a challenge we have to crack and understand what is the issue. I think the other issue is, yeah, that is one challenge that we have. But what is really very good and which may attract everyone to Kenya is that Kenyans and digital technology, they are very adaptive. So if you are thinking of doing anything, it's only in Kenya where the number of ATMs they are disappeared. Given that most Kenyans are now banking digitally, transfer of money is digital. So the number of people don't even visit ATMs. So the number of ATMs, you go to other countries, people are increasing the number of ATMs, but in our country, the number of ATMs are disappearing. A lot of collaboration is also Kenyans are very good at collaboration. You find like in the banking sector, every small kiosk or every small duka or that small shop next to you is a peaceful bank. So Kenyans have come up with the issue of you really remunerate people depending on their production. It's not a story. There's nothing like a fixed fee. It's basically a percentage of what you do. So I think those kind of thinking and Kenya, and the other thing is Kenyans are very hardworking. So I think we have so many positives. Of course, we have other many challenges, maybe political challenges a bit there and there. But the environment is very ripe for innovation. You can 95%. I think we have more than almost 100%. The number of SIM cards that are in the country, I think almost 120% the population. So everybody has a SIM card. You can reach everyone digitally. The number of smartphones is also going up. So the reach is quite there. And even if you are to sell even index insurance, I think the Kenyans have started understanding them. They understand business risk. I think we are trying to bring as much information to the Kenyans as much as possible. So as you are doing a genuine business, I think the place to be is Kenya. Thank you very much.
Great. So very good elements in there. So I'll run to each and every regulator and kind of ask them, what is this one thing that has not worked? So let me start, and how can we enable it to work? So can I go to Uganda? And if there's nothing, so everything has worked anyway. Yeah. Marcos, sorry to put you on the line. I don't know whether Marcos is on the call. I think we'll come back. So let me go to Ghana.
Hi, Elias.
Yes.
Did you say Ghana?
Yes, I said Ghana.
Okay. I think that one of the things that we may have to look at is regulatory activism. I think that it is just not saying that you are receptive to innovators, but being able to create the enabling environment to let them operate. I think that is what regulators must do at this stage, because on a daily basis, you see people create solutions that I think that when they are allowed to as it were, complement what traditional insurers are doing. I mean, we would have a much better market. We'll be able to have much more traction and get especially the underserved markets to be part of the whole insurance value chain. So I think regulatory activism should be what every regulator should be looking at, getting much involved in getting innovators and insurtechs to find space to operate on our markets. Thank you.
Thank you. More of kind of getting the regulator involved and really pushing out some of these initiatives, as Hafiz has mentioned. Maybe I can go to Zimbabwe. What is this one thing that you guys haven't done that you think would really change and open Zimbabwe for business, particularly on the insurance space? Sibongile?
Thank you. I think for us, the one thing that we haven't really done is the development of agriculture insurance. I think it's a new area in our space that we're trying to grow and do so very fast because of the climatic risks that we're facing. And we reckon that if insurance was vibrant in this area, protection of people, especially towards their food supplies, would go a long way. We have started, we believe we're on the right footing. We also conducted some knowledge exchange trips to Uganda and Kenya just to find out how they did it, because these two markets are considered to be well developed in the area of agriculture insurance. So we think if we can develop agriculture insurance, we'll go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. More specific on addressing climate risks in there and being deliberate on how then agri can take root. Yeah, so Morocco, Salma. Don't know whether she's still on the call. Let me just check. Salma, if you can hear me. Yeah, as we kind of get hold of Salma, let me go to Axel in Rwanda.
Yes. What is the question, please?
Yeah, I'm asking, what is this one thing that you think if it's done in Rwanda, it can open up the space for innovators? What is this thing that you guys would are planning to do, or maybe you've not done that it's done will kind of even open the space much more?
I think the thing is, as I said earlier, we are doing a number of things actually as to try to ease the regulatory environment and maybe trying to onboard these innovators. But again, there is another problem actually on the I can say on the demand side is actually on the potential customers, whereby we think actually that one of the reasons why even the insurance uptake or maybe insurance penetration is still low, there is also the side of kind of illiteracy in terms of the insurance. So one of the things actually we are doing with our new department that is in charge of development and inclusion is to try to multiply or increase the number of awareness as to educate the population on the actual importance of the insurance. That's because we believe that, of course, in parallel, even if you come up with any innovative way of doing insurance, if the targeted actually populations does not understand the actually the advantage or maybe the real actually importance of insurance, it may not actually give the expected results. So one of the things we are doing actually in parallel as we try to ease our regulatory environment, especially with this sandbox actually regulations, and then from the other side, we're trying to increase the number of awareness as we get the population understand well the actual insurance, and then as we hope that they will actually now join the actual markets.
Yeah, so very interesting in there, issues around consumer education as something that you guys will focus on more, like building the ecosystem that will be taking some of these particular products, but also just streamlining on the regulation space. I don't know whether Salma is back. Right, so I think that was a very good discussion this afternoon, and generally quite insightful components in there. We've seen regulators working on the regulations, building on capacity, creating a space where innovators can go in there and initiate discussions, building collaborative channels across the ecosystem. But just one of the other things is that, yeah, we need to keep on talking about what we are doing from the regulatory space to give some signaling to the insurtechs that, yeah, we can really go in and start these discussions for the betterment of the sector. So mine is just to thank everyone who attended this call. In case you need a one-on-one with our regulators, kindly get in touch with the team. Our team here, they should be able to kind of enable you to have an office session with our regulators on more specific issues. Also, we really advocate that in case whereby you need some clarity on some of the regulations that have been put in place, and looking at how best you can contend and comply with them, that can also be availed through an office hour discussion with the regulators on this particular call. But mine is just to encourage you to get these discussions to happen. Regulators are receptive to provide the necessary assistance and clarity, but over and above all, like, I think the key thing is then how we continually change the market space for the future. So I'll stop in there and maybe just pass it back to the hosts of this particular call this afternoon, and just to appreciate everybody that did participate. Thank you very much. The regulators in the house, including our director from Zimbabwe, Ms. Simbongile, James Ndwiga, senior manager for actuarial in IRA Kenya, Marcos from IRA Uganda, Sampol, IRA Uganda, Hafiz, head of Innovation Hub in Ghana, and Salma, head of FinTech at ACAPS in Morocco. Hope I'm not forgetting anybody. As Axel from BNR in Rwanda, principal in charge of insurance and pensions. And also just to thank Neil for stepping in for in a couple of ways to respond to a couple of questions. Mine is just to appreciate all those guys that did ask us questions, and please follow up. I think for regulations and regulators, the more you kind of show your face on their doors, the easier it becomes. So not only this, but kindly let us ensure that we have follow-up discussions with specific regulators in case there's anything that you need to take off the ground. Thank you very much, and I'll take it back to Marianne or Waroe or Alex that were leading this session. Thank you.
Well, I think they're a little bit quiet, so maybe I'll take it over, Elias. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you very much to the regulators, as you've already done, for joining us today, and to the cohort for asking all the questions that you have. As Elias said, we hope that this opens the door for further discussions between both you, the ventures that we have on the call, and the regulators. Would really appreciate, and we already do appreciate, that regulators are open to discussions and open to new entrants in their market in line with the market expansion ambitions of the ventures that we have within BimaLab Africa this year. So with that, I think we are done with our call. Have a great evening for the ventures. We will see you again on Thursday. We've got a great session lined up for you. And so Chidi will be back on board on Friday and ready to take you through that. And for the regulators, I believe you have a session tomorrow with Hannah. So really wishing you guys all the best and to a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you.